Yeah, dear friends, it's a real privilege to see Howard Dayton here. As many people already know him, and we are very thankful for his life and how the Lord has used him. And yes, Howard, it's a privilege that you are in our midst, and we are very much looking forward to listening to you some headlines about your new book, what's already done, already finished, almost finished, and ready to buy. Um, yes, Father. Yes, when we talk about discipleship, we are really encouraged by that you have been such a great disciple for ourselves. And some people think if you talk about great discipleship, then you talk about big stories. But in your case, we are always surprised by you because we are talking about honest stories. And when you go to your new book, I was really again touched by how honest you are. That you were sharing some story recently also that you want to be faithful and sometimes you felt a temptation to be dishonest. And so thank you for that transparency. Thank you for your example. And now it's up to Brandon to have some time together to be interviewed. Thank you so much.
You were very much.
Great. Well, thanks, Bert and Howard. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. What a privilege it is to have you. And for those of you that do or don't know, Howard is the founder and the chairman of Compass Finance's God's Way. He's also dedicated his life's work to this ministry over 40 years, dissecting what God has to say about money. He's poured his life out to Christ. He's authored the majority of our material, and we're just glad to have you here, Howard. We are super excited about your new book on honesty. So take us through a little bit of why you wrote it and what you hope this group will get out of the book.
Sure thing. Well, just a little bit of background of my story, Brandon. When I started in business, I had one objective in life, that was to become rich. Didn't care about people, was dishonest in my business dealings. And there were two factors that had me change. First, I was introduced to Christ as my Savior. And then secondly, my business partner challenged me to join him in a study of the Bible to find out what it said about money. Many of you have heard the story, but we spent a year, identified 2,350 verses that deal with money and possessions. And that radically changed my life. And I think the biggest surprise for me personally was that there were over 400 verses dealing with honesty. And I mean, it became really clear honesty was a big deal to the Lord. You know, for a guy who was very dishonest, it was a convicting time, to say the very least. I think one of the most powerful verses, I mean, there's lots of verses that tell us that the Lord wants us to be completely honest. There are blessings when we obey and are honest. He disciplines us when we're dishonest. But there's a passage, and it's Jeremiah 5, verse 1. Jeremiah 5, verse 1, which says, the Lord speaking, look up and down the streets of Jerusalem, search in her squares. If you can find but one person who loves justice and deals honestly, I will forgive the city. I mean, the Lord had told them he was going to judge Jerusalem, but if they could just find one person, then the Lord was not going to judge Jerusalem. And of course, we know the story. They couldn't find one person. And that passage really spoke to me that it's so important from God's perspective to be honest. And it's also very, very rare to be honest. So that's the That's the big picture of it, Brandon. And of course, I ask myself, and I'll ask everybody on this call, are you willing to be that person in your city, in your family, in your country?
That's really good. Yeah. I didn't realize the 400 verses, which is great. And I think it probably goes without saying you can't do finances God's way without being honest
That's right.
in handling money and possessions. Well, if you had to break down, the primary reasons the Lord requires honesty, what would be some of the top reasons you'd coach us on?
I think there are primarily three reasons. And the first is that when we're dishonest, it damages our relationship with God. When we're dishonest, it damages our relationship with the Lord. And I mean, think about it. When I make a dishonest decision to get more money, whatever it might be, what I'm really saying in my heart is that God is not able to provide me with what I need, that he is powerless to discipline me. Because if I really believe that God was going to discipline me, then I wouldn't dream of being dishonest. So really, we're acting as if God doesn't exist. We're practicing atheists. On the other hand, when I am honest because I believe Christ loves me, that he cares for me, that he's going to provide for me in his way and his time, then that strengthens my relationship with him rather than having it damaged by being dishonest. Then the second reason is it's impossible for us to be dishonest with money and love people. And I know that for myself, for a long time, if I was dishonest on paying taxes, I really didn't get down to the bottom line that it was the fellow taxpayers that were suffering because of my dishonesty. Or I think I'm dishonest when I take something from a company, but it's the stockholders, the shareholders of the company that are suffering loss. So loss always affects other people. And of course, we're called to love everybody. And the third thing, as I think about it, is that really the whole idea of evangelism, when we say we serve a holy God and we're making that case to somebody who doesn't know Christ as their Savior. But if on the other hand, there's dishonesty in our lives, then it's a disconnect for the person. I believe followers of Christ should be absolutely honest in our dealings. It sets us apart from the world, and it affirms that we serve a holy God.
That's great. So it's a matter of obedience. There's accountability when we're dishonest, and it's the path towards alignment with God and his will. So when you think about the world we live in, everything the world throws at us encourages us to be dishonest. And I know you talk about some of the challenges in the book, but what would you say are the biggest challenges we face to become honest, and how do we overcome those challenges?
I think one of the big challenges, Brandon, is what I call cultural dishonesty. It's when everybody around us seems to be acting dishonestly. It can be as large as the culture of a country, a whole country. And we all know of many countries where dishonesty is the norm. Or it can be as small as your family or just a group of friends or acquaintances, where dishonesty is not only a way of life, but it's expected. And if you're not dishonest, sometimes, people don't like that. I love the book of Daniel, love Daniel. And when you think about what Daniel went through, he was a prisoner of war, taken to Babylon, and for 3.5 years, really in an intense brainwashing. He learned the Babylonian language, literature, was exposed to their gods. His name was changed to be one of the names for one of their many Babylonian gods. And it's interesting, when he first made the decision that he wasn't going to eat the king's food, you might remember from Daniel 1, because it had probably been sacrificed to idols. It says in the scriptures, he made up his mind. And I believe that for all of us, when we're exposed to a culture of dishonesty, it starts where it started with Daniel. He made up his mind, and we should make up our mind that we're going to be honest no matter what the cost. And of course, with Daniel, King Darius appointed 120 administrators to administer the kingdom. Daniel was one. He became was going to be appointed prime minister. The other 119 conspired to have him thrown into the lion's den, and it would have cost him his life had God not intervened. But he'd made up his mind he was going to be God's man, no matter what. And it's interesting that when the 119 who had him thrown into the lion's den, they said themselves, we found no negligence in Daniel. He wasn't corrupt. Everybody knew the dude was an honest person, and the Lord miraculously preserved him and elevated him. So really, it should be no matter what the circumstance, we're going to be honest people.
That's great. So I love your comments about culture and the impact that culture can have on honesty or dishonesty, and then of course your commentary on Daniel, and he made up his mind. I guess what you're saying is, ultimately honesty is a matter of the heart and our commitment to the Lord.
Yes.
And it's a reflection of that. Well, I know in your book, you talk about the contrast between the blessings of honesty and the curses of honesty. That's a really interesting area or section in the book. Can you just tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it just struck me as I was doing the study and categorizing the different passages that dealt with honesty. There are clearly curses. There's no other word for it when a person's dishonest. Curse on the family, and then you have the blessings, and there's blessings on the family when a person, parents are honest. The sons of an honest man, how blessed are they? They're blessed because they grew up in a culture where honesty and loving Christ were practiced. And it's true in every area practically of our entire lives. The honesty is blessed financially. The fraud, wealth obtained by fraud dwindles. That's an example. If a person is acquiring wealth through dishonest means, God deals with that ultimately. And on the other hand, as Kurt was saying earlier, when we're godly people and we are generous people, then God knows he can entrust us with more. But in every area of our life, there's the curse of being dishonest and the blessing of being honest. And for me, that's been a huge motivator to seek to be an honest person. As you said, I think Bert said, there are times when it's a challenge and you fall back into old patterns, but that's when you confess it to the Lord, confess it to the person that you've harmed, and just remake that commitment to be a man or a woman who loves Christ.
That's great. Yeah. So ultimately, do you want the carrot or the stick?
Yeah, that's right. I'll take the carrot.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in the area of financial discipleship and money, just so critical. Well, thanks, Howard, for taking the time on a Saturday to join us. Just love you, brother. And we're excited to get the book out to the market and to share it with everyone in our sphere of influence. So thanks, and God bless you. And Bert, back to you.
And
Yeah,
Bert,
thank you. Yeah.
love you, brother, and are so thankful for what the Lord's doing through you and the team around you in Europe.
Thank you so much, Howard. Yeah. Yeah, the bad news for everybody is that we now have to stop this interview because time. Thank you so much, Brendan, also for leading this interview. The good news is that Howard has written a small summary for about his book. So, and we will work on that so that it will be translated and you will receive it next week. And also, you have already received a PDF, not to copy and steal it, but to spread the good news of the book, yeah, like Howard always is saying. And then the book itself will come out soon. So it gives many opportunities really to go deeper into this topic. And let's see what next year, what kind of stories we can share around honesty after this conference. So thank you so much, both